Today I'm talking with Rowyn Adelaide, author of Withering Dreams. I have been so excited to jump into this book and talk to her more about it because it has such a cool concept. Imagine you're living in a world where there's limited resources, and thus the powers that be are like, you know what? We need a 6-month dormancy where you're going to go into this pod and go to sleep, and then you'll wake up in 6 months. Imagine when she goes into dormancy and she wakes up in this like dream realm, right? There's more powers, there's more twists and turns. Is there a love triangle or is it a why choose? There's so much to cover, and Rowyn is so kind. We have such great conversation around just kindness in general and the messiness of life, and she has really great advice as an author. So I hope you enjoy this. Welcome to Busy Reading Romantasy, a video podcast that discusses books that merge elements of romance and fantasy while occasionally exploring other genres. We get to escape our world and dive deep into themes of good versus evil, power dynamics, and all of the delicious taboo topics. Curiosity and open-mindedness are a must. That being said, this is a podcast for mature audiences only and will contain spoilers. Your mental health matters, so be sure to check the trigger warnings of each book to decide if this is the right episode for you to listen to. Now, let's get into today's episode. Do you travel at all, or?
Yeah, so that's actually one of my absolute favorite things to do outside of reading, writing, and music is traveling. So my husband and I have been like all over the world. Like when we can plan that out and afford it, like we try to take trips everywhere. It brings me life. So that is definitely my favorite thing.
That is amazing. What are some of your like most notable places you visited?
Sure. So a couple years ago, we went to Japan, and so we went across the country, and it's just so enchanting and beautiful, and I love the culture, and just everyone was just so kind, and it's just so beautiful. So that's probably one of my top favorites. When I was younger, I did study abroad for half a year in Scotland, and I lived in a palace. So that's very special to me. I just love Scotland so much. But yeah, everywhere we go, there's just something beautiful to find, you know?
Yeah. That's so cool. I always said that when I was younger, like Asia was never among my top places to visit, and I think that was more of a place of anxiety and like culture shock, and I know nothing about this, and it's really been on my radar lately, more and more people talking about it, and I'm like, I feel the call. It's yeah.
For sure. Just do it. Like if I always, when people are like, oh, I don't know how you travel so much and go to different countries and whatever, I'm just like, just do it. Like overcome your fear. And when you're there, you figure it out. And it's just such an amazing experience, you know? So do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I did after I graduated college, I did a month in Europe, and that was really fun. We just went all over the place. And yeah, like you said, you show up in somewhere like, I remember Denmark, and there you can't even guess with that language, Danish. It's nothing, but you figure it out, and we got to where we were going, and it all works out, and everyone's super nice, and you learn that. And I go to Mexico a lot, and my family's from Mexico, and it's always interesting hearing people's maybe like perceptions of certain places versus your experience of going to certain places. So it's always interesting, and you realize the world is a lot bigger,
Yes, absolutely. And I think the other thing I love about traveling, aside from the obvious, is like you realize how amazing people are, because you meet so many just kind people along the way that are helpful or just interesting. And I just love it. I love meeting new people. So
yeah, absolutely. I had a taxi driver once who was very adamant that I get his phone number so I could let him know the next time I was coming back. And he was like, I will come and get you. I'll take you. I'm a tour guide on the weekends. And I'm like, absolutely. Thank you. But yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. Okay. So I saw that you were a big reader growing up. What were some of the books that have helped form you as a reader, as a writer, as a person, as a lover of fantasy and romance?
Oh, I love that. Okay, I'm obviously, as all readers know there's so many.
Yeah, I know. It's a huge question.
Yeah, but there's a few. So I just, like you said, fantasy, I love romance. But I also have always like been drawn to spooky things and stories. So
Mhm.
one of the first books I was obsessed with was Where the Sidewalk Ends by Shel Silverstein. So it's a collection of like children's poems, but they're also kind of like quirky and spooky sometimes. And and the drawings in there are just like magnificent. So that really, I just became obsessed with that kind of like spookiness. Um, I was really obsessed with the Animorph series. Did you ever?
Yes,
I was
I
obsessed
did.
with that. I was like, whoa, I was obsessed. So that was a huge one for me as a child.
Yeah.
And then as I grew older, I really got into like gothic romance and just romances in general. So Jane Eyre is one of my favorite books, and I just thought it was a masterpiece. It's just so dark and beautiful, it's just haunting. So yeah, I think those would be some in my top like 10
Yeah,
for me.
absolutely. It's funny. Actually, you're 3 for 3. I've asked every author this month that I've spoken to about their reading journey, and everyone's mentioned horror, and it's just like interesting.
Yeah,
I would love to get into that, and I am my own worst enemy, and my brain cannot
yeah. No, I
handle
get
that.
I know. I don't when it's weird because I don't particularly like watching like gory horror movies or anything, but you give me like a moment where I can write something really like weird and creepy in my book and I'm like, let's do this. Like what? What am
Yes.
I okay? I don't know. I just love it.
Yeah, 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 yeah. No, I love it, and I love that you mentioned that because, like I said, I'm so excited to get into the book. But can you tell me a little bit about how you got started in writing?
Sure. So I've always kind of just, since I was a child, I've always just written little short stories. I wrote a lot of poetry when I was younger. So I think that I didn't realize this at first, but I hear it kind of comes across when I'm doing my world building. Like maybe it's more flowery or lyrical. So that kind of piece of me is coming out in that way. But yeah, I've just always written short stories. I'm sure I have notebooks tucked away with just random bits of stories, out there. And I've always wanted to be a romance writer in particular. Um, but, the story finally needed to be written. So I guess it's better late than never,
That's
you know.
fair. That's fair. What about romance that had your attention specifically?
Oh, that's a good question. So when I was 13, my mom accidentally gave me a romance novel. And I was like, what is this? And then I was like, oh, what is this?
Oh,
Hello. Okay, well,
yeah.
now I love it. But it's not, I think it's the piece that, with you get a happily ever after in a true romance, right?
Mhm,
And so I think I love that piece that I know, like, even though people are going to go through struggles or trauma or whatever,
mhm,
technically there should be a happily ever after. And I just love that. And I love the
mhm.
journey to get there, and the relationships that build in a romance. So I don't know, it's just addicting. Like I could just read romance all day, every day if I
Yeah, yeah.
could.
Yeah. No, and I love that you mentioned that because as a reader, that is it's part of it is like seeing a strong and especially relating it to reading a lot of like really strong female main characters
Mhm.
is seeing them go through all this stuff and
Yeah.
you're more than likely going to get, a happy ending along with all the emotions that come with it and their
Right.
journey and everything. And that's why, that's why we read. But
For sure.
um
For sure.
yeah.
Mhm.
So we're gonna get into Of Withering Dreams in just a moment, but what was the writing process like for you with that? Did you have certain like rituals that you would do or yeah, take me through that process.
So I'm considered a pantser and a plotter. So I'm a
Okay.
super organized person. So I need some sort of like backbone, when I'm
Mhm.
writing a story. So I've been kind of looking at different ways to plot things out. The one I'm kind of drawn to right now is Save the Cat. It's called like you write beats and big plot points out.
Mhm.
Um, as kind of the backbone of the story. And so I do that. But as I'm writing the second book, I am wildly away from the plot I had. Like the characters are just like, nope, we're doing this now. I'm like, all right. So I went back to look at my save the cat sheet or whatever. I was like,
Yeah.
wow, this is not the story that I had outlined, but here we are.
That's
Yeah,
so interesting how that happens.
yeah, yeah. I'm like, maybe I should redo the outline. I'm like, no, just see what happens. It's fine.
Yeah, yeah. It's like you have, your plan, and
Yeah.
then the book is like, "No, no. This
Hmm.
is what's going on."
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I'll like wake up in the middle of the night and get a thought about something a character said or needs to do, and I'll have to write it down. And like, God, I miss sleeping, but it's fine.
Yeah, part of the journey.
It's fine. I don't need to sleep.
What about, the publishing process for you?
Oh yeah. So that has been, I think that in marketing has been the most shocking thing to me because
Okay.
I'm doing it all on my own as an indie author, and I knew it would be hard work, but I just didn't really understand like what that meant. And so just all the articles I've read and all the groups I've joined to try to learn about this process, like it was intimidating, but like now I feel like I have a better handle on it now that I have one book out. And then I have a support system now too, which is very helpful. But for any new authors starting out on their own, just like don't give up. There's like a community out there that can help you. And that
Mhm.
was the biggest, most important thing for me. But yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And even right when we hopped on the call and chatted before I started recording, you mentioned that you learned how to make your own covers as well. You do that?
Yeah, I'm obviously by no means a professional, but like I use Affinity, which is comparable to Adobe. It's just not a subscription. And I if you open one of those programs, you're like, "What is this?" And so I just for months and months, I just started clicking on things and trying to figure out what they all did, and, the undo button was my best friend, and, yeah, that's what happened. So we just did the cover reveal today for the second book, and hopefully people like it. I think it's pretty cool, but yeah,
Yeah.
it took me a while, for sure.
That's awesome, and I'm proud of you for doing that, and that's how it is. So I'm actually a full-time podcast producer as, like, my main job, and so I edit other people's podcasts, and I think people are, sometimes surprised when I'm like, "I was never trained in this. I
Yeah.
just started doing it," and that's how I definitely feel about editing programs of, like, I watched a little 10-minute tutorial on some of the basics, and
Mhm.
then you just start clicking stuff, and you'll
Yes.
figure it out
Yes. Oh, that's
eventually.
amazing. That's super
Yeah.
cool too. Yeah, you get it. Like, yeah, all the YouTube videos, right? I'm like, how do I
Mhm.
make this letter look like metal? Like,
Right, yeah, and
that's really
I still do that. I'm like, "Okay, how do I, like, slow down this way or, reverse
yeah,
things or whatever?"
yeah.
And you figure it out. And I think it's great because a lot of the times, sometimes we get stuck of, like, thinking, "Oh, I need this course," or, "I need to learn how to do this." And I think the beautiful thing of just starting is it becomes very obvious very quick, like, what you actually need to know. Like, I
Yeah.
don't need to know, all of these transitions and stuff. I mainly do podcasts, so I don't need any of that. So it's like I can kind of cut through and answer my questions quicker.
I think that's kind of cool because that's like a metaphor for life in general because we have so many expectations we put on ourselves or that like society puts on us, but at the end of the day, it's actually your lived experience and the relationships you build, I think that teach you the most. So, yep, that's my random thought of the day.
Absolutely. No, that was a great thought. That'll most likely be one of the little clips that I that's
Oh,
always like, "Oh, one more time." Um, yes, that's awesome. Okay, so we are here to chat about Of Withering Dreams, and I have to say, I've mentioned it before, but this is one that I've been pretty excited because as a fantasy reader, my number one thing is I love just when there's no rules, you can make whatever world you want. I love getting access to new concepts and new ideas and new places, and you definitely checked the box of this one. Um, so Before we hop into kind of more like spoiler talk, can you give a kind of spoiler-free synopsis of sorts for anyone who hasn't read the book yet?
Yeah, for sure. So in general, the book is about this dying world, this decaying world. It's running out of resources, and there's a group of oligarchs, like super powerful oligarchs, that have these laws, the elders' laws. And they say that every 6 months, everyone needs to go into this like magically induced coma, pretty much, and like a plant would during the winter. That's why it's called the dormancy. And so they don't remember anything of their time there. So they're essentially sleeping half their lives away. But then little do you know, the characters are going into this other realm, being portaled into this dream realm where all these magic things happen. There's high stakes trials during it. So it's just neat because I don't know if readers really know what to expect going into it, but
Mhm.
that's the crux of it. So it's yeah, a lot of
Yeah.
things happen. Powers develop and all that. Yep.
All the good stuff. All the
All the
good
good
stuff.
stuff. And a ball. There's a ball.
Yes, classic.
Yeah. Can't have a fantasy without a ball.
No, you can't. You can't. I just read Quicksilver, and I feel like there's also something about this, like there's always this like long dinner table thing. Like there's certain scenes where I'm like, oh yes, I've been here before. But
Familiar. I love it.
um yeah, so okay, so now we're getting into spoiler talk, so you don't have to. I like at first I was always like, oh, I don't know, like I think the idea is I want people who, you know, I want people to be able to enjoy this conversation, especially if they haven't read it, but I like to get to the meat of things, and it's easier when you don't have to tiptoe around, plot points and spoilers and everything. So, if you haven't read this book yet, this is where you pause, go read the book, and then come back and you can get all of the rest of the delicious details. Um, but to start, you created such a cool world. Where did this idea come from?
Oh, that's a great question. So I think bits and pieces come from just my travels and then things I've just consumed over the years, fantasy wise. So the dream world in my head, I'm like, what would I want my dream world to look like? And then I try to paint that picture in words for people.
Mhm.
Because so there's like a lot of just very lush colors and like different parts of it have like beautiful like avatar like sparkles around and a huge movie for me growing up was oh my goodness, Ferngully, The Last Rain
Mm,
War.
mhm,
And I always just was so drawn to how beautiful and magic nature was. And so that plays a huge part, obviously nature in general, but
mhm.
especially in the dream realm. So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I'd say.
I like that. I like that. And I do like the connection, as you've mentioned a few times now, to nature and like this idea of like almost a winter hibernation, right? But then it carries on into this dream world.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Can you tell us a bit about your female main character and just kind of her journey and transformation throughout the story?
Yeah, I feel really connected to her, which I'm sure is, you know, makes sense because the whole book, first book is from her point of view, so I really had
Mhm.
to try to get into her head.
Yeah.
But I like how she's gone through things and she questions herself and there's broken pieces of her and but she just is trying to put herself back together and make something beautiful out of those pieces
Mhm.
um, because that's real life. Like we're all flawed and we all try to work through what we need to and lean on the people that we have, even if it's found family or actual family or friends, you know. So I just love that. I love that journey that she goes
Mhm.
through in that way. And I'm excited to see what comes in the future for her as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That brings to mind, especially when they kind of like wake up and they're learning about where they're at and kind of um, having powers and where is all this coming from, and her having this kind of giant question mark of like what's
Yeah.
going on with me? Why am I not normal? And also the genuine fear of like not wanting to hurt other people, and kind of that question of like, am I a bad person? And that's
Yeah.
I love fantasy settings, but that have very real themes that like all of us probably have questioned at some point, like who am I, what's inside here, what type of person am I, you know?
Right, right, yeah. I think she plays with that a lot, especially at the end, because her powers are they're mysterious. Like she doesn't know what no one knows. Like you shouldn't be having these powers. What are they? And they
Mhm.
can hurt other people. And so she's questioning, like, am I a bad evil person? Like what is this? You know?
Yeah.
So I love that journey for sure.
Yeah. And that also brought to mind this kind of theme of like she got the messaging a few times throughout the book of like just kind of keep a low profile, and it's for safety, right? But it's this idea, especially I think females can especially relate to this, of like playing small and like, oh, don't draw attention,
Yes.
and the consequences of like that can be really dangerous.
Yes. Oh my goodness. I love that you picked up on that. Okay, yeah, we are in the spoiler part of things, so
Yes, yeah.
I'll speak freely. So,
Yes.
I'm so used to being like, "I can't say anything," but no,
Yeah.
I like that, dichotomy between because I've kind of marketed this as a love triangle-ish kind of
Mhm.
romance, and I didn't wanna say what that meant because as the story unfolds, I think that becomes more clear why I'm describing it that way.
Mhm.
But I did set that up purposely, like, one of the male characters is the one that's like, "Stay under the radar, like,
Mhm.
don't don't be too big for yourself."
Mhm.
And the other one is like, I want you to be safe, and this is why I'm saying it, but I also accept you for who you are, and I'm gonna be
Mhm.
here no matter what." And I just love that difference between the 2 because one is definitely more immature than the other,
Mhm.
emotionally and mentally. So, yeah.
That actually segues perfect because that's what I was gonna bring up next,
Oh.
where Saren basically agrees to pursue a relationship with her best friend, which that is scary because yeah, you don't want to lose this friendship that you have, and including the spoilers, it doesn't work out. But from the very beginning, there's something going on with his brother, and we get little snippets of it, but we don't know entirely
Yeah,
what's going on there.
yeah,
I love that. I think that was something new for me. I don't think I've nothing comes to mind top of head of like a similar kind of situation. But can you tell me a little bit more about that love triangle?
yeah, I thought it was a fun thing to play around with. I think people I mean, with as with everything, they'll either really love it or they're like, "Why did you do this to me in the first book? Like, why are you
Mhm.
wasting my time with this
Right.
other
Fair.
guy?" And I'm like, "But it is important because it's just an interesting dynamic." You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
I don't want to. It could turn around. I don't know. I don't want to give anything away. But she has very significant relationships with both of them, and I just am
Mhm.
so interested in picking apart how they end up where they're gonna end up.
Mhm.
Um, so I always love stories where like maybe you either love or hate a character, but then it completely flip flops in another, at the end. So I don't know. I just find that fascinating. I know. Oh, there was a review. I'm not reading my reviews anymore. I did initially because I
Okay.
was trying to track for some giveaways and just to
Yeah.
build my permanent teams. But now I'm staying away from that just because I don't need to be a part of that realm. But some of there was like a lower review, which is totally fine, but it actually like cracked me up. They were so mad that I put them through this relationship with her best friend,
Oh,
and
yeah.
there were some swears in there that were it was really funny. It was real I was like, "I'm gonna use this for,
Yeah.
like, marketing purposes." It cracked me up so much. I'm like,
That's amazing.
I'm so sorry, but I'm glad I got a visceral reaction from you."
Yeah, yeah, that's fair.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I that's I was talking with that about that with another author as well of in her case she had done a wide shoe situation, and we talked about how like Me as a reader and with the amount that I've read, I automatically go to like worst case scenario. And I'm like, man, this is not going to end up well. This is going to, people switch sides. And you're like, oh my gosh, he's going to turn evil or something. And I think there's a beauty of uh, maturity in a sense. And when Saren stood up for herself and was like, I'm sorry, but this is just not, what
Yeah,
you're looking for, or, I'm not, there's a mismatch in the love here. Um, and to still see Caden's like support of her and kind of how they dealt with the aftermath, I was very proud and surprised of the level of maturity, because again, with fantasy books you never know, and part of
right.
me was like, man, this is going to get messy. And
Yeah,
like I think yeah, again, there's no question there.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate that. I think so when there's miscommunication tropes, just to have that as a device, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? Instead of kind of, I mean, they're fine. 'Cause not saying I won't ever use them, but I
Yeah.
don't like them to like linger on and that's like the whole thing. Do you know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like I want there
Yeah.
to be
Yeah.
some self-reflection and have the difficult conversations, you know what I mean? And so I think that'll carry on into book 2 because there's a lot of unanswered questions and unresolved feelings for both of the love interests. And so she's going to have to kind of work through that a little deeper in the second book as well.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I like how you mentioned that, because in the discussions that I have, I do often get miscommunication as a trope that's not liked very often from readers.
Yeah.
But I love what you said about like, I don't mind it. I think that when you stretch it out really long, that's where the frustration as a reader grows, because you have that information and you're like, come on, it's
Right.
right there.
Right.
So, yeah,
Right.
that's a great point of like, it's not the miscommunication in and of itself, it's how
Right.
it's getting resolved. How long is it taking for two
Right.
people to just be like, hey, you
Right.
know?
Like,
Yeah.
can we try to grow from this and try to be adults a little bit and like have those difficult conversations? You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's what I
Yeah.
appreciate. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, I love that you brought. Sorry, now I'm bouncing around, but no, the whole
Yeah.
thing between like why choose and like love triangles. I love all of them. I know
Mhm.
they're either a lot of people hate them or they love them, but I kind of, when I was marketing, I kind of let readers think whatever they wanted to think. Like if it was a why choose or an actual love triangle, like I still
Mhm.
really haven't said much, but I think people are starting to figure it out as they read it.
Mhm.
Um, I for me, it's like I always want to take the harder path. So for me, I love why choose, but I
Mhm.
feel like a love triangle is more difficult because they have to dig deeper and have to choose. And I really like that
Yeah.
whole experience, you know? So yeah, excited.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's interesting to look at.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, completely random question. As I was doing my research, you have a playlist.
I do.
Mr. Bombastic is on that playlist.
That playlist is the okay, if you ever want to do it inside my brain, like the book playlists I have are pretty much it. Like it is so
Yeah.
all over the place. Like I love Muse, but the whole thing's not going to be a Muse playlist, right?
Right.
It's like Mr. Boombastic. There's like this weird, not weird, a beautiful, like quirky French song on there, which no one seems to talk to me about. And I'm like, do you
Yeah.
know, it's just out of place, but at some point in the book, that song resonated with me, and so I threw it in there. I love it. I love my book playlist. I have the second one, and I'm like so excited to share it with everybody because it's equally all over the place. But yeah,
No, that's amazing. I love that. Tell me more about where this song came in to the mix.
right. I love it. People are like, wait, what? And I love it when readers are like, oh, I bet this song was at this point in the book. Oh, that gives a whole new meaning to this like scene you wrote. I'm like, oh yes, I love it. I just love
Yeah,
it.
yeah. And that's like the funniest part is when I first heard that, immediately my brain was like, where does this fit in? And like, because you have, crazy powers and this like magical dreamland, and everything's kind of really dark too. And like And then I just picture like obviously I think I go to kind of the love triangle situation and I just imagine like I don't know Kate like swaggering up or something or like it's funny to imagine like that if these ever got made into a movie or something. I need that in there like at some
I
point.
would die. I would just pass out, and they would probably be like, "No, Rowan, we're not.
No,
That song
immediately no.
doesn't actually fit in this at all." I'm like, "Well, at the moment it did."
Yeah, yeah. You're like you make it fit if we want this to work.
Otherwise, no deal, no deal. Mr.
Yeah,
Romantic
yeah,
has to be in it. Yeah, I don't know. It's just such a. I just love
mhm,
music so much. You know, it just I have to have it when I'm writing or pretty much doing anything.
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
It's I know so I tend to read more like physical books than like ebooks or whatnot. But so I know there's been times where authors will include playlists, and it's funny because I am very into music as well, and I think they're great to like set the tone or set the feeling. Like I've been very obsessed with like Spotify playlists, how you can just search something and there's like 50
Yeah.
million ones. So like I
Yeah.
have like villain arc era or like uh, POV, you're reading Akatar, and it's like
Yeah.
Luminary and Ordinary and like all of
Yeah.
those types of songs. And I'm like,
Love it.
it just works so well.
I love it.
So it is great to get into that and
Yeah, for sure.
feel it even more.
Yeah, I guess my playlist, because I didn't put it in any sort of order, might not work for that because all of a sudden you're in a tense moment and Mr. comes up.
Yeah,
Sorry.
she's holding the egg facing down the
Yeah.
dragon,
It's
Mr.
like,
Lova Lova.
oh God, I failed. I failed. Oh, whatever. It's
Uh,
never going to be put in order. I just can't work that way.
oh my gosh, it's fine. It works. It becomes the most fun guessing game, and that's how
Yeah,
we get to talk about it now. If it was too obvious, there'd be no question behind it.
right. Right.
Um,
So
cool.
good.
Okay,
Oh.
so what was your favorite scene to write in Of Withering Dreams?
Oh, that is again, I mean, I really, really, I don't know what it says about me, but I really love writing like the scenes that are spooky or when the
Mm,
character
mhm.
is breaking
Yeah,
because I think that's such, I feel like we all experience those moments, especially when you're having going through trauma or, a difficult situation. And so it really brings me back to times in my life when those things have happened and trying to express that in a way that makes the reader feel what the character is going through. I
yeah.
think is just a really cool and beautiful thing. Because I think then the end, when they come out of that or become stronger or more resilient, like it means more.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah. When it comes to the spooky things, is there anything that you maybe intentionally add to kind of create that feeling?
Oh, sure. Yeah. For the spooky thing or like the creatures that are super like
Yeah.
gross or grotesque, I think that's another place where my usage of words and poetry come out because I
Yeah.
really want to make you like disgusted or like scared of that creature. Do you know what I mean? Like feel what that person is feeling when they see this thing. So I think it's just how I use my words, and I really love. I'm such a dork. I've always loved the sources, and
Mm.
so I like could spend probably an hour trying to find the perfect word to explain what I mean in that
Yeah.
situation. And so yeah, I think language is so beautiful. So
Yeah.
now I'm getting all like whimsical.
Well,
Well,
and
full of words.
that's the funny thing because I was gonna mention how that, like, first right off the bat, within the first chapter, you're kind of getting a little insight into what this world is, and you're like, "Oh my gosh, they just go and, like, lose half of their life. What's going on here?"
Yeah.
And then they wake up in this dream world, and that part was terrifying, and you're like, "What is going on here? They're getting chased. Are they stuck here?" And then they get whisked away to the whimsical, and all of a sudden they're eating grand dinners and going to a ball, and you're like,
Right,
"Wait, hang
right.
on."
And the character's like, what is happening? Like, oh, well, I gotta do it because I'm here.
Yeah,
Like,
no,
oh my
absolutely, and they're like, "Oh, if other people don't find it, then, like, hopefully they just wake up." And you're like, "There's a lot
you're
going
like,
on here."
you're like, oh my God, they're gonna be stuck in this freaking portal realm forever.
Yeah,
Yeah, pretty
no.
terrifying.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then so that was also the quote that I pulled out of everything. I was like scrolling through, and for some reason I pulled living is messy business. And I think that just encompasses greatly like everything that we've been talking about and taking those hard times and those scary times. And that's like part of life is getting through that to the other
Yeah.
side, you know?
Oh, I love that. That's one of my favorite quotes too. I felt
Yeah.
that I felt that so hard. I was like, "Oh, it is. It is. Life is a messy bitch. You just get through it."
Yes. And especially even, like, looking at the, like, or why choose scenario or a love triangle and stuff like
Mhm.
that, and, and you get through it, and then when you get to the other side, that's when it, I think, becomes more funny to, like, look back and you're like,
Yeah,
"Man, I really I was really dealing with all of that at one point," you know?
yeah, for sure. I think that's a huge part. So for me, one of my coping mechanisms is humor. I just always feel like even some people say like, I'm gonna laugh, otherwise I'll cry. And that's how I've lived my life. I'm just gonna laugh my way through. I'll deal with it. But I
Yeah.
do find that one of the characters, I think that's probably where I got Caden's like personality from. Is like
Mhm.
he hides behind this mask of humor all the time, but he's really dealing with some very dark emotions.
Mhm.
Um, so that really resonated with me. Sorry, I'm going on a tangent,
Yeah.
but that's where we're at.
No, no, I love that, I love that, and it helps just shed light on what everyone is going through, and I think that's what's so fascinating as well, is getting to talk to awesome authors who are writing awesome books, is that, like, what I take from it and my experience of the book is one thing, and then hearing why you've intentionally done certain things and just, like, getting that deeper layer, and I'm like, "Oh, yeah, this makes
Yeah,
sense," and,
yeah,
even as you said, that's something that I've taken a lot in my personal life is that a lot of the times the kind of most, uh like funny, easygoing, loving people, it's like they've dealt with the messiness of life too, and they've
yeah,
chosen to still be that person and show up with, that light essentially. So,
yeah, absolutely. Oh, I love that.
yeah,
Ugh,
yeah.
you just never know what someone has been through or is going through. And so I really just am drawn to people who are just kind and at least recognize that in others, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm,
Absolutely.
mhm.
And that's part of why I was doing the podcast as well, and, there's always been, like, a fascination with the more kind of, like, steamy sexual taboo aspects of things, and I've been learning how to have those conversations in the first place because I think it's important to talk about, and also, I just went to a convention in Miami, Sinners and Saints, and they had a whole panel of taboo. And it's really unfortunate that there was also almost across the board, everyone at some point spoke about their own uh, challenges in life of facing abuse, and there's this link of there's a reason why we're writing these things and reading these things, and so
Yeah.
I'm still finding ways to have the conversations, but it's part of what I'm very passionate about at
Oh,
least. So
I love that. No, because I think I don't know, for people who don't read romance or whatever subgenre of romance, I don't think they don't particularly understand that. It can be very cathartic, like you said, for
mhm,
people writing it or reading it. And
mhm.
so it's just a safe space where you can like process these things. And that's just I think that's just incredible.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, I read a lot of other genres, but romance in particular in that regard, I just think is so cool in that
Yeah,
way.
absolutely,
Mhm,
absolutely.
mhm.
Um, So, on the flip side, what were some of the more challenging scenes to write? Either like maybe technically or emotionally or whatever.
Sure. There's a scene early on where someone dies, and that was really difficult for me to write. Actually, well, when I wrote like the first six chapters, I think I was visiting a friend in California, and we went camping in the redwoods, which I'm obsessed with, and that's kind of what Evergreen, the main like mortal realm you're introduced to is. Um, and she was going through a difficult time with her mother passing away. And so I was there just to support her, me and this other friend. And we just had this like trip, and it was super just like healing, and it was just a beautiful experience, and to be there with her. And it just had so many emotions come out during that trip. So when I was writing that scene, I just was feeling all the feels, and so it was hard but also very, very healing,
Mhm.
like I'm like writing it and I'm like just crying. I'm like, nope, just keep going, keep going. So that was probably the most difficult scene, but also one of the most rewarding, I think.
Mhm.
And then on the flip side, while I'm writing book two, it is from two different characters' point of views. And so that's been really challenging for me because I was so stuck in Saren's head. And
Yeah.
now I'm writing it from one of the main male characters' point of views as well. And so I'm like, now I have to really get into this person's head. So
Yeah.
that's been interesting.
Yeah. That's cool. That's interesting about the process and I'm excited to read it. So the things, as they always do, really speed up towards the end, and we have a bit of a cliffhanger in the sense that Saren's back in the mortal realm. She's retained all of her memories this go round, and now she's essentially on the run because the powers that be have caught on. Things are getting actually dangerous. I guess I'm just curious around your thoughts of how the book ended and have essentially kind of set things up for book two.
Yeah, I know, like, I don't mind cliffhangers in books because I know people get really emotional about it, but I've been telling people, I'm like, you don't have to wait too long for book two.
Yeah, yeah, you'll be
It'll be
okay.
it'll be all right. And I feel like it wasn't a cliffhanger that was like, I was like a soft cliffhanger.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
There wasn't like a crazy piece of information. It was
Right.
more like action based of
Yeah.
like there's a
Yeah.
new adventure going on here.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm halfway through writing book two, which wish me luck because I have a month to write the other half.
Woo!
I don't know why I would do this to myself, but I'll get it done. But yeah, it's been really fun because of course, like in the first book, the first half is largely world building because I'm just trying to like set this picture up for everybody. And then you're right, the second half is like boom, like jumping time and just getting there.
Mhm.
So the second book is not, I mean, there is world building, but I don't think it's as slow as it was in the first because
Gotcha.
you are introduced to more regions in the mortal realm. But yeah, and it's not as big of a time, like there aren't bigger time jumps like in the first one too, because I was just trying to get through this first like 6 months dormancy. And so it was like moving along. But this one is not like that.
Mhm.
So I'm excited. And yeah, it's just a journey, like you said, with the one brother, and then her working through her feelings and what that all means for both of
Mhm.
them. So yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
excited.
Awesome. Oh, that's exciting. Okay, before we talk more about Of Blooming Embers, is there just anything else kind of top of mind that you'd love to speak to about Of Withering Dreams?
um, oh, I'll give a shout out in the in the ebook and Kindle Unlimited versions. There is a bonus epilogue that is from
Ooh.
one of the main male characters' point of view. So that's kind of a nice little insight that leads into the next book. So yeah.
Perfect. Good to know. Good to know. Awesome. Okay. So then looking at book 2, we have Of Blooming Embers. Do you have a date or kind of a timeline that we'd be looking at?
Yeah, so I'm hoping if everything goes to plan that I would release it mid to end July, maybe pushing into August, but it won't be later than August for sure.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then I'm
Gotcha.
my tentative schedule for book 3 is November, December. So I'm just trying to really get them out
Yeah.
there and get the
Yeah.
story out of my head.
No kidding. Okay. So, do you envision, is it a trilogy or do you have more kind of bouncing around there?
It's at least the trilogy, but as
Okay.
I'm kind of working through, I think I'll know honestly when I'm in book 3 because
Yeah.
now I'm like digging into, well, now I have to learn how to write like more political intrigue and rebellions and stuff like that, which I'm not as familiar with
Yeah.
writing wise. So it might push into 4.
Yeah. That's fair.
It could be 3 or 4. It just depends.
The story will let you know.
Yes, it will
Yeah.
let me know.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay. And then just like looking into the future on the horizon, do you have other ideas that are bouncing of things that you might want to explore?
Yes, I do have other things brewing for side characters that maybe didn't get as much time to shine, because
Okay.
it wasn't their focus in
Yeah.
this series. So yeah, I definitely plan to have other stories in this universe.
Yeah.
That's what I say. Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Mhm.
awesome. And that's been really cool. I think that's I don't know that I want to call it a trend, but something that I've just like noticed in general is kind of the way that books are being written and published, and especially more maybe like indie authors, or I don't even know. I've just noticed it. A few authors that I've talked to. Will start sprouting off and they're like, well, I want to get to book 2, but I have to write this novella first because this information intermingles with here, and it's very exciting to see how it develops and to stay in the same world and get to see so many different characters and
Oh,
stuff
for
like
sure. Yeah,
yeah.
I love that. Because I think it's comforting too because you already are familiar with these characters, and so it's kind
Mhm.
of like a nod to characters you may have loved if they show up in another, offshoot of the story. So I love that. Who did that really well? So way before Bridgerton came out, like as a show, I was
Mhm.
obsessed with that series years and years and years
Oh,
when it first came out. And so I loved how Julia Quinn did that. Just you would see little like, tidbits of the other characters come in and I just love that. So yeah,
yeah.
I'm excited to do that moving forward. Yep.
That's awesome. I love the show. I have not gotten into the books at all yet, but good to know.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Awesome. And then do you have any like kind of bookish events on the horizon? Anything you're doing this year
Yeah,
coming up?
yeah. I'm actually trying to look into different conventions in the Midwest. I did sign up for one. It's next year though. It's on Halloween next year. It's called Meet Me in Milwaukee, so I'm attending that. And
Mhm.
then I'm going to be signing up for. There's a big one in the Midwest called Romance Con, and so
Mhm.
as soon as they put the sign up for that, I will sign up for that. And then I'm on the wait list for this year's Romance Con, but I don't know. It just
Okay.
depends if people drop out. Um,
Gotcha.
so that would be in September if I got to do that one. And then, yeah, I'm going to keep my eyes out for more because I really want to get out there and do that.
If you ever want to come and hang out in Orlando, we have Romantasy Con in the fall here.
Ooh, okay. I'll
Yeah.
look into it for sure. I mean,
Yeah.
I told my husband he's going to be my little assistant when I go do these. So,
Perfect. Yeah, you need one.
yeah,
It's a lot and it's very fun.
yeah, for sure. I'm excited. I'm excited to get
Yeah.
out there and do more conventions and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and it's cool. It's really awesome to meet people. I went to my first book convention last fall, so not even, oh my gosh, it hasn't even been a year. And first I was not prepared for a book signing. I walked into the room and I was like, oh my God, what is this is a lot. And
Yeah.
it gets very exciting to just like walk up to someone and be like, oh, tell me about your books, and to,
Yeah.
be able to say like, oh, this is super interesting, I would love to know more, being able to meet, and vice versa. Now that I've been going a little bit longer, there's a couple authors, um, to be able to tell them like, oh man, I read this book and I loved it so much. And I think it's just super fulfilling on both sides to be able to have those interactions.
Oh, for sure. I love that. Yeah. It's that piece about, interaction and, you know, humans interacting with humans,
Yeah,
keeps you
absolutely.
going. So I
Yeah.
love that for sure.
And life is messy, so going to balls more often has been, like, a priority of mine. Like, I just wanna go to a party and dress up and have
Yeah.
fun, like,
I love that. I
so
love
yeah,
that.
yeah. Um, awesome. Well, it has been so great chatting with you. Like I said, I was so excited about this, and I'm excited to continue going on this adventure. Um Before we close out, I love to ask every author, do you have any advice for someone who is thinking about maybe writing their debut novel or getting into writing?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I think it's just take it a day at a time and then find your community and sit down and write, even if it's a sentence every day. Those would be my top 3 things.
Yeah,
It's so easy to get disheartened, especially when you're first starting out and you don't know anything or how things work. Like, you will find your people and you will do this. Like, just take it a day at a time. That's the biggest thing. Because when I first started, I wasn't a part of Bookstagram or anything like that. And so this was all brand new. I was like, what is this? How am I going to do this? And then one day, just people are so freaking kind and they just start talking to you. And it's just so neat. So just take it easy. It'll get there.
yeah, yeah. That is great advice, and, I agree wholeheartedly. Like, out of all the communities that I could have gotten involved in, I think being in the book one, and then specifically kind of the romance, romantasy, fantasy, dark
Yes.
romance kind of pool has
Yes.
absolutely the best place to be out of everything. So,
Did. I don't even go on my personal socials anymore. I'm just so focused on like this community and it's
yeah,
so much more like enriching and not stressful. So,
yeah,
you
yes.
know, so yeah. Yeah.
No, that's fair. That's fair. Awesome. All right. Obviously we will have all of the links down in the show notes, the description and everything. But could you let everyone know maybe the best places to find you, to chat, whatever?
Yeah, sure. So I think I'm most active on Instagram. I do have TikTok as well. I have a bunch of different ones, but if you go on my Instagram in my link tree, you'll have all of the access to everywhere I am.
Perfect.
So
Yeah.
yes. Yep. Just find
Love
whatever you
Linktree.
want if you
It's made
want.
it so easy.
Yes. Yes, it has. For sure.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you again, Rowan. It was so great to actually get to chat, and talk face to face. So
Yeah. Thank you so much. This was really fun.
if you've made it to this point in the episode, thank you so much for watching. I'd be incredibly grateful if you showed some support either by following or subscribing, depending on what platform you're watching on, and leaving a comment. You can always follow me on Instagram at Busy Reading Romantasy or on TikTok at busy period reading period romantasy to see what I'm up to. You can also email me at busyreadingromantasy@gmail.com to tell me your thoughts, dreams, secrets, or if you just have any book and author suggestions you'd love me to cover. Grab yourself a good book, get cozy. I'll see you next Wednesday for a new episode.